Welcome to training for Exact Max. This lesson is on the Inventory Control module and how to create receipt transactions. The Receipt tab handles the receipt of all inventory parts into stock. There are several different types of receipts: unplanned, purchase order, shop order, subcontract orders, and backflush orders. We will discuss the differences in a moment. Let's get started learning about receipt transactions. These are the steps we'll follow. From the System Manager, we'll go to the Inventory Control module. We'll choose the Activity menu and Transactions. We'll go to the Receipt tab, and then we will show the costing fields by turning them on in the Preferences window. Begin in the System Manager and select the Materials tab. Then choose the Inventory Control module. From there, choose the Activity menu and choose Transactions. The Transaction window will appear. This lesson is on using the Receipt tab, so choose that one. In the Transactions window, there are three main panes in the view. The upper left has the Transactions tab, has the Transactions tabs, the upper right has the part stock information, and the lower pane is a grid that will display the parts that are part of the query. For entering multiple receipts at one time, use the lower grid to enter the information, highlight the lines to be processed, and then click the Process button to process all receipts at one time. Before we dive into the module itself, there are some user settings that you should know about. You can see these by clicking on the Options menu and then on Preferences. In the Preferences window, you can decide which items you want to appear on certain screens or on reports. If Display Costs is marked, the Cost Unit field displays on all Transactions tabs except the Transfer tab. Also, Unit Cost and Extended Cost columns display on the transaction grid below. When Display Due Quantities is marked, the Balance Due field displays on selected Transactions tabs. Also, the values displayed in the Transaction Grid Quantities column after a query match the value displayed in the Balance Due field for each other. When Display Due Quantities is not marked, the Balance Due field does not display on the selected Transaction tab. A zero value displays in the Transaction Grid Quantities column for all line items after a query. To display on-hand quantities on the Cycle Count tab, mark the checkbox next to Display On-Hand Quantities in the Cycle Count box. So if you want one of these items to appear, you will need to place a check mark in this window. Let's look at the results of configuring these settings. We'll go ahead and place a check mark in each item. Once the checks have been placed, click OK. Then close the Transactions window and reopen it so the window can refresh with your new choices. These fields were not visible earlier before we placed the check marks in the Preferences window. Remember, these are for this user only. Each user must select their own preferences. Let's start the receipt process. From the drop-down field at the top of the screen, you can see the receipt type choices. They are unplanned, when no order is open to make or buy this part, but we have a part that is not already accounted for in inventory that we want to put into inventory. Purchased, to receive open purchased orders except non-inventory and subcontract. Subcontract is to receive subcontract purchase orders. Shop is to receive shop orders. And backflush is to receive a shop order and issue the component parts at the same time. Once we select the order type and enter the order number, the majority of the fields will populate with the information from that order. The main thing you need to do is enter the order number, the stock location, and the quantity. You can also display a range of orders and process several receipts at once using the grid at the bottom of the screen. Let's walk through a receipt. From the drop-down, select the Purchase option. Now we need to tell Max which order we are going to receive. Either manually enter the order or select it from the browser by double-clicking in the field. If you are manually entering the order number, you will need to enter the full order number, that is the purchase order number, along with the purchase order line and delivery numbers. Click the Search button to search for all available items. Then double-click to select the order you want to receive. Once you have selected the order, several fields will be auto-populated with the order information. You will notice they are grayed out. The stock ID will auto-populate with the primary stock ID set up in the Part Master. You can change this, however, by manually entering a different stock ID or selecting one from the browser. Now we'll enter the quantity to be received. You can see in the Balance Due box what has yet to be received. If this receipt is not going to use the normal GL accounts, the GL reference field is used to overwrite the standard GL accounts that are used in a receipt transaction with a special amount. The GL reference or override field may auto-populate if a purchase order was entered with an override code. You can also manually enter one or select one from the browser by double-clicking in the field. In the browser, click the Search button to look for available items. Double-click the row you'd like to use to select an override code. That's all we need. Click the Process button to process the receipt. If this part has demand for use, a warning message will appear. This is your indication that you may not want to put it away, but issue it to a job that is waiting for it. Click OK to close the warning. The receipts for subcontract and shop order work exactly the same way. Unplanned receipts won't have an order number, you just enter the part number and the rest of the steps are the same. For backflush receipts, when you enter the order number, the grid will display a list of the components that will be issued with the receipt. The quantities can be manually overwritten if necessary. Let's try a backflush receipt. Remember that when we do a backflush, the parent part is received and the component parts are issued in one step. Click the drop-down and select Backflush. Manually enter the order number or double-click to select it from the browser. Now enter the quantity here. Now move your mouse out of the quantity field to see the components below. You can now see the components that will be issued for this order. You can manually change the quantity or the stock ID to be issued from if you like. Now you just need to click the Process button to do both the receipt and the issue. And you're done. When you are finished working with the Receipt tab, you may exit the Transactions window. So click on the Activity menu and choose Exit. And you will be back to the System Manager screen. In review, Today we have learned how to process unplanned receipts, as well as purchase order, subcontract, shop order, and backflush receipts. Thank you for participating in Exact Training.